What up, bitches? It's the misanthropic one, aka He Who Hungers, and I'm back up in this bitch for another rant. Lil Wayne versus Black Lives Matter. I'm sure a lot of you have heard the somewhat controversial statements that Lil Wayne has made concerning Black Lives Matter. And let me say this, those that follow me know my feelings on Lil Wayne. I think that he is a creative artist. I've been critical of some of his recent releases, mainly Carter 3 and up. I've told people that one of my favorite albums from him is the Carter 2. I think that prior to that, he was rhyming. He was very unique. Even with Carter 3, I think that he was creative on there, but it just got somewhat stale and repetitive quick to me. But that's just on the musical standpoint of Lil Wayne. I support him. Look, he's a black man that made it out from humble beginnings, made himself into a superstar. Can't knock him on that level. I will not knock him at all on that level, or on that basis, I should say. But he was recently on, Skip and Shannon. And for those that don't know what that is, that's a show where two men are discussing sports opinions and shit, different things going on in sports. So Lil Wayne was featured on there, and this is how it all started, by the way. Lil Wayne was featured on there, and I think Skip, I forget which one, asked him, hey, how do you feel like performing in front of your crowds, and some of them are predominantly white? And he says, Lil Wayne says, well, to me, that I took it as that means that there's racism doesn't exist anymore, which, to me, that answer is kind of super vague. Some people said it was stupid. I can understand why people say that, because racism is something that you can't touch or feel or defeat. A lot of people believe that, well, you can just end racism and one day it'll just all go away. It's one of these things that, again, I gotta shout out my man Painless Risen. It's one of these things that Painless Risen has said this and put it in the perfect perspective. It's something that people use, ignorant people will use to justify why they're better than you. Everyone practices it. There's not one race that doesn't really delve into racism. It's not exclusive to just white people. It's not exclusive to black people. It's just there. It just exists. You know what I mean? It's just one of these things that people themselves, intrinsically, they have to get over it themselves. They have to have a experience that kind of humbles them, and then they go, God damn, like, I'm a fucking asshole, so that's that. But yeah, the way I was taking that response was, he's saying that, look, people are spending their money to come and see me. Predominantly white people will spend money and come and see me. They will cry when I come out on stage. They'll do this. So I understand what he says I get what he's saying. I just think it came out wrong personally. I know what he's saying, but to say racism doesn't exist is asinine to me. Okay, so now he gets an interview with Nightline on ABC News, and I forget the journalist's name. She goes and asks him about Black Lives Matter. Do Black Lives matter? okay? And he basically said, he goes, I don't feel any connection to them. He's like, my life matters, of course. He's like, he just says there's no connection there. I don't have any connection to them. He's like, don't come at me with those questions, like, you know. And you know, you got all these Negroes are mad at him because he basically didn't repeat their narrative and say, well, yeah, black lives do matter and yada yada yada. No, nobody. Now all of a sudden, you got all these niggas coming out saying, oh, well, he's a coon and this and that. And I want to shout out my man. Hold on. I always forget to turn off my fucking phone. I want to shout out my man O'Shea Duke Jackson, because he covered this. This is the blatant hypocrisy part. I'm going to come at it with my own angle, but I just want to reiterate something that O'Shea Duke Jackson pointed out. He made an excellent video on this subject, and he was talking about how nobody was calling Lil Wayne a coon when in his lyrics he was talking about shooting and killing your black ass and fucking all these black bitches. Nobody cared about that. It wasn't a big deal. He wasn't cooning then, even though he was making money off of that type of rap. And granted, I do like that shit too. I've done a video speaking on this shit. I do enjoy some of those songs are hard as fuck, okay? But you didn't consider him a coon then. Now all of a sudden, because you know you're using this Black Lives Matter thing is your judgment tool for who's black and who's down with you. Now all of a sudden he's a coon, because he didn't really say anything that derogatory, if you ask me. He didn't curse them out. He just said, look, I have no connection to them. It is what it is. And you know, you got all these niggas perpetuating victimhood. Oh, well, fuck you, you're a coon. Fuck you, I never liked you in the first place, which is bullshit, because you know that you were bumping a Millie and Lollipop and all that fucking shit. This guy had stellar hits. So y'all motherfuckers are fucking disingenuous as shit. See, and this is why I can't stand majority of y'all, because you like somebody up until a certain point. They have to fucking agree with you. Why? Who cares? This is one of the detriments within Black America, that we just don't know how to say, okay, you know what? I don't have to agree with what he's saying, but I still like his music. That's why I say a lot of y'all are disingenuous, especially when it comes to hip hop shit. A lot of you are disingenuous ass pieces of shit. And yeah, that's just on the face. That's just blatant hypocrisy, you know. But I want to shout out my man O'Shea Duke Jackson for bringing that point up. But my point is this. This is where I'm gonna come a little bit differently. And I just kind of briefly mentioned it. Y'all gotta stop sitting back and using certain things, whether tangible or intangible, to judge people's blackness or how down they are. Y'all gotta stop doing that. We're the only race that touts that shit. Like, we gotta sit there and always, there's videos right here on YouTube of people asking other people, do Black Lives Matter? Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? See, and this is the problem with a lot of y'all, because if you really believe that shit, you should be able to stand on your own goddamn 2 fucking feet that God gave you and tout that shit yourself. And if you happen to find people that agree with you, then let your movement or whatever build within itself. You don't need to always go around and fucking push your shit onto people. I mean, to me, it's kind of like Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm sorry if any of y'all are Jehovah's Witnesses, but some of y'all are fucking annoying. I don't like sitting in my house and people coming and knocking on my door and bothering me while I'm doing whatever the fuck it is I'm doing. Don't push your shit onto me. Now, it's one thing, again, I've said this in an old video. If I'm walking by your parish or whatever and you go, hey, here, brother, here's a pamphlet. That's one thing, because I'm in your vicinity. Don't push it on me. And on top of that, why the fuck, is anybody gonna ask Lil Wayne, of all people, why are you asking him a question like that? He's not a socio-political activist. That's not reflected in his lyrics at all. He's never sat there and said anything that has to do with the social or political environment. That's why he left that fucking interview. He said, I'm not a fucking politician, and left. And I don't fucking blame him. I don't. Why would you stop using this shit? And then on top of that, stop going to celebrities. This is another thing that fucking drives me crazy. Stop going to celebrities to wave your fucking flag. If you believe, again, going back to my previous point, if you believe your shit is that strong, it's gonna grow legs on its own. And then let these celebrities come in, however genuine or disingenuous they are, then let them come in. When I say disingenuous, I mean people like Colin Kaepernick and Jesse Williams, all these people riding your train, even though they didn't really have the same experiences that you claim your black ass had. They really didn't. But you know, this all encompasses itself. It's very hypocritical. My feelings on Black Lives Matter, again, a lot of you already know how I feel about it. It's a fucking bullshit organization. I'm not even gonna call it an organization. It's a bullshit group. It just thrives on victimhood. It thrives on why I don't call it organization is because there's nothing really organized about them. They're jumping in, disrupting other people's organized events. They have nothing of their own. It's being controlled by a white liberal, George Soros, who again is the main puppeteer behind the shit because he donated all that fucking money to you and y'all don't even see it. He controls the shots. He calls the shots. Anyone who's still even following that group at this point, you just read your guiding principles. Those alone are a fucking joke. You're talking about free fucking Wi-Fi? Like, are you serious? Free Wi-Fi? Just, I read a comment about that. Just go to fucking Starbucks if you want free Wi-Fi. You know what I mean? Like, it don't make sense. Those guiding principles are fucking laughable. But this is just a wake-up call because a lot of particularly black people, I'm glad to see that some of y'all are waking up to see how these dudes don't give a fuck unless it's a white cop that takes the life of one of y'all, especially when some of you don't deserve defending. Some of y'all are in a bad situation as it is, and yet niggas want to go and defend that. I'm not defending a nigga that does stupid shit and then gets shot the fuck up. Now again, some of the instances are fucked up, like Philandro Castile, for example, where he said, listen, I'm armed, I have a gun on me, and he told the cop this, and he still ended up shot. I'm not saying every incident is your fault, but majority of these high-profile cases, you gotta sit back and really analyze them before you start going to defense of these dudes, okay? So, stop with the victimhood bullshit. I'm begging y'all because it really just gets stupid. No one takes you seriously. You can't use the race card for everything. You got niggas all over the internet. I gotta bring this nigga up. Boyce Watkins, I saw 2 of his videos where he's calling Lil Wayne a white supremacist. I mean, simply because he said, well, I'm not connected to them. Then he's calling him a coon, and he's saluting T.I. Oh, thank you for calling out Lil Wayne on his coonery. Like, really? First of all, Boyce, if, like I said, how the fuck is he a white supremacist? Because he goes, well, I don't feel any connection to him. I'm not connected to them. That's not white supremacy. This is this victimhood I'm talking about. And then the second point I gotta make on that shit is you're saying, oh, T.I., thank you T.I. for calling him out on his coonery, okay? So you're calling Lil Wayne a coon now simply because he said, well, you know what, that's not my thing, essentially. T.I. was making the same music that Lil Wayne was, talking about shooting your black ass, hustling, dealing dope. That's what he was doing. But see, it's okay now, because now I think T.I. came out with some EP. I forget what it's called. It's Us Together or something like that, where he's talking about a sign of the times and actually putting out conscious music. Okay, I could give him that, but no, majority of his music is about hustling and shooting your black ass. So, I mean, this is what I mean. See how it encompasses itself? These are who you go to defend. And, yeah, I could go on and on, but listen, you know what? I'm going to do a separate video on that nigga Boyce Watkins. I think it's high time I go in on his ass. I got to do it, because it's getting to the point where just me looking at him kind of pisses me off. All right, so stay tuned for that. But I'm gonna cut it short here. Shout out to all my people: O'Shea Duke Jackson, Painless, Truth Teller 410. I know he just put out a video. I watched half of it, but I got caught up in some other shit called BLM is full of shit. Check it out. Subscribe to them brothers. They put out great content. All right, everybody else, y'all know the deal. Leave your love, leave your hate. Most of all, subscribe, and that's it. Peace, bitches.